y'all, welcome back to Curated Clinical, where we break down the science and the research and bring the real talk about health directly to you, just like we're sitting at the kitchen table. I'm Allison.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Marcus.
Hey, I'm Bridget.
All right, so how y'all doing today?
Good.
Making it.
You making it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
You
almost
been
Friday.
stressed?
It's almost Friday, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Friday Eve.
You know, it's like the end of May, and we just had Memorial Day, but, trying to get through 6 months without, I think this was my first break in 6 months.
Oh,
Other than the weekends. I haven't really taken any vacations.
We haven't had a federal holiday since MLK, so it's
January.
Right.
yeah.
Wow.
That's
So
a
we're
long
tired.
time.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with anxiety and, just being tired and all that. So, what do people typically do when they're trying to deal with stress?
Go to sleep.
They go to sleep, but they also drink.
Drink.
Get a little,
Yeah.
they tote a little
Get
bit.
a little tipsy.
So we're going to talk about marijuana, cannabis, and alcohol today. So there's been some research that has come out saying that marijuana is associated with negative effects for psychological disorders because it has this impact. It's like oh my God, what do you call it? It has a psychological impact for people, and it exacerbates their psychological issues, especially for teens.
This is
Some research that has just come out.
about alcohol?
No, about marijuana.
Marijuana, weed.
Weed, cannabis, sativa, that dank.
So this is people who already have a diagnosis, a psychological issue, and it can make it worse.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it can
make their
exacerbate
symptoms worse.
Mm-hmm.
But they're saying particularly in younger people. So adolescents.
Particularly in younger people, they have shown a relationship between cannabis and these psychological impacts.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that your brain hasn't fully developed.
I'm wondering the same thing.
Yeah. So it might have. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know scientifically or not, but I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Because I would wonder if they did that same study on adults, that might have some psychological issues, if they would find some of the same things. But just a thought, because that's interesting.
Well, it's interesting also because a lot of people who start to display symptoms of psychosis display it later in life because of stressors.
Yeah.
Usually stress, you say genetics have a role to play, but stress is actually the mechanism for which psychological issues kind of express themselves.
Can I stop? Can you quickly
break all that down?
Well, yeah, but what do you mean by psychosis? Yeah, just for our listeners, just a quick brief on
So I'm using it, and I am not. Let me disclaimer: I'm not a psychologist or a psychotherapist or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm using psychosis, I'm talking about the experiences with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or things that are causing you to hallucinate and not be not see the world in the same way. So I'm talking about kind of these pretty serious mental health challenges that people might have, and you oftentimes don't see those things express themselves or show up until later in life, usually adulthood. So it's interesting for this to be shown in teens that maybe them using the marijuana might have brought that out or made it worse or made it more likely for it to express itself.
Very interesting.
So I don't know if y'all have ever heard of epigenetics. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Could you try to explain it in your own words?
So in my own words, when I think about epigenetics, I think it has to do with like your environment and how that can over time does it like it can change your genetic makeup, right? So your DNA is the same DNA that you were born with, but the environments that you were sometimes in, whatever that is, like those can alter, some of your genetic makeup or something like that. That's kind of how I.
Yeah, I think
it.
that's a pretty good explanation. I think also the reason why I brought it up was because of like your environment. The EPI actually comes from epidemiology, and then they combined it with the word genetics. So epidemiology is kind of the study of disease and how it impacts people's lives. So if you are experiencing stress or you're exposed to environmental hazards and things like that, then it will impact your genetics. So we all have a lot of genetics, right? Like and there are recessive or there are genes that you'll never see any manifestation of it in your life, right? But through experiences, through lived experience, through the way that we eat, the way that what neighborhoods we live in, the life experiences that we have, some of those genes are turned on and expressed. And then through that process, you can actually pass that trauma basically down to your children. And so, my eggs, for example, are really have been influenced by my grandmother, and whatever she was exposed to has been passed down not only to my mom but to me. That's kind of an example of how, like, they talk about post-traumatic slave disorder and things like that. It's real. Like, it's not just like the thing. And I've even heard people talk about how you can, like, I've heard, I haven't experienced it myself, but I've heard people talk about having dreams of their ancestors and feeling it in their body. And it's like, because epigenetics plays a role in that, right? Like, I mean, I think that's a spiritual component to it too, but there's definitely a very real, like, connection to our ancestors through our genes. So, I mean, when we talk about marijuana and the connection to, psychological expression, a lot of times they're experiencing, stress, trauma in their life, things like that. And
it's just compounded. Through multiple generations, like you said, including the stressors that we experience in real time.
Right. And then using marijuana to cope. Right. So is weed bad? Because we heard that study, or what do you think?
Bridget?
I mean, I've always heard.
Like, I'm passing it on.
Right, I see you pass the baton to me. I've always heard, it's from the earth, it's natural, how can it be bad? And, this is growing up, this is, being older, and my dad used weed and other substances, including alcohol.
Okay.
Sometimes to his own detriment, unfortunately, because of that coping, right? That self-medication that I saw. But now in 2024, we see all of these other products coming about. So there's gummies, there's vaping, there's all of these other things that are not just rolling a joint in the 70s, that he was doing. So, I really can't say. I'm not a chemist, I'm not a pharmacist, I don't study marijuana, I don't study THC or CBD. We see all these CBD products, and like I think there's a lot of confusion, even on my part, about like what's the difference, what's legal, what's not legal. You see a lot of different things and products floating around, and a lot of money being made.
A lot of money.
On the state level, on the federal level. So what's the business side of it too?
So I do like to look at the research. Like, what does the data say? And that's kind of the point of this podcast, is for us to look at and better understand, you know, what our general conversation at the kitchen table, what is backed up by science, right? And so marijuana or cannabis is how they refer to it in research. And there's like a whole bunch of different types of strains and forms of cannabis. There's cannabinoids and all these things, right? And there's a whole bunch of strains of marijuana and cannabis. And then, you know, having it in edible form versus vape form versus smoking form, those all have different impacts on your body. So the research says that smoke inhalation from marijuana can have negative impacts on your lungs. It may increase your risk of lung cancer. It's not a direct relationship saying you smoke a joint and then you're going to get lung cancer. We're talking about, you know, over time, and then also thinking about it on a like a statistical level, like over large groups of people who, you know, it shows that there's a likelihood that those people who smoked marijuana had a higher likelihood of getting lung cancer or had some kind of outcome that showed lung cancer. That is not as strong of a relationship as you would see with cigarettes. But, you know, I think the thing to think about is that maybe some of these products that are being sold and commercialized have added ingredients in them in the cannabis. It's not just pure plant, right? And so,
very true.
I mean, this goes back to last episode where we were talking about benzene.
Yeah.
Benzene has also been found in marijuana. Bruh, yes. And so you have to be very careful about where you get
where your source
is. That part, like,
so.
Yeah.
Because I think that's my thing, right? Like, I don't think it is bad, right? I've never seen, and I grew up in the church, you know, like, I've never considered weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, I've never considered it bad, just because it's like it comes from the earth. So if it's grown out of the earth, to me, it's like it was put here for a reason. Can you abuse it? Yeah, you can abuse anything, right? So I guess what I kind of think about is like what you just said. What other ingredients are being put with this plant that is natural, right? To either give it more flavor, make it, you know, a better tasting or a better experience for somebody, or maybe it's something that's gonna get you high faster, or something like that. And it's just like, so yeah, if you add all that extra stuff in, of course, at this point, no, it is harmful now, or it could potentially be harmful, but that's not the same, you know, if that's what we're talking about when we start putting in fillers. And I think the other piece is, again, like with everything, I think even with food. But with you know, marijuana, it's moderation, you know. And I know that, you know, people, it is considered an addictive drug. Some people consider it a gateway drug, but I think with anything, I think that it's just moderation, and yeah. So that's where I leave it.
So there's also research that talks about marijuana. And they compared it to alcohol in terms of car crashes and accidents and deaths from car crashes. Of course, alcohol is like 40% of car crashes are due to alcohol use. And then they like looked at marijuana.
I got hit by a drunk driver.
Oh my goodness.
So, 2016.
I'm so glad you're alive and you're.
Yeah, I am too. Downtown Raleigh.
Yeah, I know somebody's mom who died from a drunk driver. It's horrible.
8 o'clock at night, like, girl, you couldn't get an Uber. But anyway.
But
goodness.
So, but then they look at marijuana and they're like, oh, you know, we've had some crashes due to marijuana too. But almost always the marijuana and alcohol together.
It's a combination.
Yeah. that is when those crashes have occurred. So it's like you're making the association, but is it really an association? Because you can't single out marijuana.
One substance or the other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then also people think, oh, you can just drink in moderation, and that alcohol isn't really that bad for you. Like I don't know. Have y'all seen this? Like, there's like an alien meme or like this cartoon thing that you can see on social media, and it's like, I'm drinking mild poison. I'm going to drink my mild poison today to relax.
No, I haven't seen that.
That's just you. You've just seen that. What kind of research have you been doing?
But alcohol has actually been, now they're coming out saying that no amount of alcohol is safe to consume. Because it's linked to like 7 cancers, it's linked to diabetes, infertility, heart disease. I mean, they say no amount of alcohol is safe.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there and be like, who is they? You know, they say.
Please, because
and who's doing this research and who's funding the research? Because that's always my question.
We're of course going to link the sources in the chat, because I can't rattle off all the authors and things like that.
But I'm always asking a question.
But I mean, one source that I remember and can say is credible is the World Health Organization has talked about, and so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, well, what is it about alcohol? Because I think same thing with all these other things, like sunscreen, we talk about marijuana, we talk about alcohol and these associations. What is it about alcohol that is dangerous? And so they say it's about it's a certain ingredient that when you digest it, it actually can do insulin spikes, and it can also produce a kind of, hold on, let me push pause because I need to look this up. I have the actual information.
You paused it?
Well, no, it's recording, but let me just.
You just cut it. Oh, it's on your computer.
Ethanol, that's what that was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it was the ethanol.
Ethanol can increase estrogen in the body, that increases risk for breast cancer. And then there's also this thing called acetaldehyde. I'm not going to even say that. It can cause DNA damage and cause liver, head, and neck and esophageal cancers. All right, 10 cups of wine is considered light to moderate.
Right. In what amount of time?
10 cups of wine is
over
considered.
A week.
Oh. I thought it was like a one cent, 10 cups of wine. I would 2 sheets to the wind. My God, like
2 cups of wine.
I was about to say 2 to 3 cups of wine. I'm like, whew.
That's a lot of wine.
Good. Like,
okay, so ethanol is associated with spikes in your insulin, and also it produces a chemical in your body that increases your risk for. Ethanol is also connected to a spike in estrogen, which then puts women at high risk for breast cancer. So if you have the BRCA or something like that, strongly recommend that you do not drink alcohol, because it can increase that risk for you. And then if you're trying to get pregnant, I saw the Real Housewives of Potomac. This woman was trying to get pregnant. She was having difficulty getting pregnant, but she said she drank champagne every morning, and I was like, hello.
Have those mimosas sitting.
Yeah, do you see what you're doing? So those are the mechanisms that increase your risk.
So I got a quick question. You may be able to answer, you may not. The ethanol, is that something that it naturally occurs through the fermentation process, or is that something that's added in? Like, if I was to, like, because there's people who do home brewing, there's people who make their own wine. Like, is that ethanol still found in that process? Like, is it a part of the natural process, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, or is it something that, like we talked about before, is it ethanol is added in? And so, like,
think it naturally occurs.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say for sure.
I mean, I think ethanol is a part of what makes it alcohol.
Right.
But you know, to your point, like, didn't we just hear about vegan wine?
Oh, yeah.
What is, like, how can you not have, like, how is wine not vegan?
Yeah. Because at first I was just like, yeah, I mean, it's that kind of stuff, right? Like, because I wouldn't have ever thought that. How do you make, like, why are you even labeling this wine vegan wine? Like, what makes wine not vegan? If it's truly made from, like, grapes,
Yeah.
and I know you can make
Right.
wine from
Grapes.
different things, but like that is the original one, I guess. And so, like, if it's coming from grapes, what do you mean? Like, it's not
Yeah.
vegan. It's not an animal byproduct, right? But
the process.
it's in the process, right? And so, like,
The process is they
Yeah.
get rid of impurities in wine by washing it through fish guts. Yeah.
And we don't even know if that's every winery or
No.
is this like the mass
I think
produced
it's
wine?
kind of
is it small?
Probably
vineyards?
mass-produced
Is it,
wine.
So we don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
But if
know.
it doesn't have the vegan on it, then it,
Just assume that it's.
yeah.
I think that's probably a safe assumption. Yeah.
And I was thinking about something a minute ago. Is the social pressure to drink too? Number one, alcohol is legal. I consider it a legal drug. And then there's that pressure. There's happy hour. There's wine downs. There's all these things that signify that it's time to drink. It's time to have a glass or a cocktail or something like that. And it's like this natural thing to de-stress by having some kind of adult beverage. But it's not for everyone. Not everybody drinks, and I think that it should be normalized.
I think that's an interesting point.
So,
That's really good.
some of the guidelines that I've seen are saying don't drink drink less than 10 cups of wine or the equivalent of 10 cups of wine in a week. So that would be probably 2 glasses a day or something like that for 5 days. So I guess that gives you an idea, but even with that, there's not necessarily a benefit from, like, the risk outweighed the benefits, because they've said red wine can be good for the heart and things like that, but the risks of being associated with all these cancers and diabetes and infertility and also I kind of cut back on alcohol because I had insomnia and migraines from drinking alcohol.
It doesn't help you sleep. It actually makes your sleep worse. And something that kind of actually funny but not funny about the red wine being healthy is the studies were apparently done in, like, European countries, but it's like, is it the red wine or is it the universal health care?
That part. Well, so I think to wrap this up, the kind of key takeaway is that the way that research finds these associations between different ingredients is by doing large-scale studies and so we have to look at how the study was designed, and the kind of gold standard is to have, a clinical trial, which is comparing a control group that doesn't get any kind of drug or alcohol. In this case, they're not drinking alcohol,
right.
or they're drinking non-alcoholic wine or something. I don't know, or drinking juice. And then the other is drinking the wine, and then everything else is the same between them. And they compare the health outcomes over time or over a large group of people to see who is likely to have cancer outcomes or have these other health outcomes. So it's not saying that there's a direct relationship between you drinking a glass of wine and getting cancer, but they're saying that there's a high association. And the research is showing over and over again that alcohol does have these high associations with all of these health outcomes. So that's probably the key takeaway, is that this is why we need clinical trials, to be able to better understand how these things happen, how they're impacting our health, and why we need to have representation from, Black and brown folks in these clinical trials, because who knows if it could have an even worse association with Black people, because we have, other things like heart disease and diabetes and obesity and all these things. Epigenetics, right? Yeah, and so we need to make sure that we have representation, that we understand how these things are impacting our bodies, and that we're doing the research ourselves on what we're bringing into our bodies.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I would definitely say I would. You could sign me up for a alcohol or a wine
or
clinical trial.
A marijuana clinical trial.
A marijuana clinical trial. I would do it. Like sign me up. If you have it, yeah.
Oh, this was the last thing. Sorry, one last thing. We are HIV researchers, so I did want to bring this up.
Yeah.
Is that marijuana has actually shown a positive association with reducing inflammation for people in general, but also in particular for people living with HIV. And that is especially important because as they're trying to find a cure for HIV, the HIV virus is basically attracted to immune cells that have inflammation. Mm-hmm. And so the marijuana, they've found that people who smoke marijuana have less inflammation. Wow. And then thus have fewer HIV cells in kind of their brain tissue and lymph nodes and their gut and things like that. So,
I would like for us to dive deeper into that. That's very interesting.
Because the inflammation has been really a hot topic, especially for those who are aging.
Yeah.
Aging in the
I think
population.
Inflammation just in general, because I think what I've been reading and hearing is like inflammation is one of the key causes for disease.
A lot of
right?
diseases.
And a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. But like just what you just said within the population, the population of folks living with HIV and like the reduction in inflammation also like helps with their.
It also supposedly smoking marijuana has helped COVID patients because it reduces inflammation in the lungs.
And it's supposed to reduce nausea as well, right?
Yeah, and so that's helpful for cancer patients. Mm-hmm. It's also shown like a 30% reduction in pain for cancer patients. And a lot of other benefits. So, I honestly, if we're looking at the research shows that there are more benefits to marijuana than there are risks. Mm-hmm. Whereas alcohol is the opposite. Mm-hmm. Alcohol has more risks and very few benefits.
We might need to do another episode on marijuana because
I
feel like
after you join the research study.
Because I can tell you all the information. But I just feel like
let's do our own trial.
Yeah, as long as we can get funded. But
3 participants,
right? Who's gonna be the control? Not me. But no, I think because there's like just other strands of. I think they all come from the cannabis plant, but you have like, and I could be misspeaking in that part, but like you got hemp. Like right. I take CBD gummies. Mm-hmm. Right, but like they're in that family, and I feel like, but it's not illegal, and so like
because they've taken out the THC,
right? Yeah. But we haven't like dived into that. But I would just be interested if there's any studies for like HIV patients or cancer patients or other, patients that have people who have like chronic illnesses or pain, if CBD has the same effect. So then you're not actually using the or getting the THC, but the CBD, because CBD does help with, or hemp also can help with like pain, but I don't know how it affects like inflammation and stuff. So I would love for us just to like maybe dive deeper into that and look at some research on that.
I think I'm here for that. And then also I think to your point, the THC might be the reason why there's a relationship with psychological challenges, because the THC is actually what is impacting the brain. And so you can actually take out THC and it may not have those same effects.
It's inert. Well, not necessarily inert, but it's different than having those effects, those brain effects.
All right, y'all. Next time.
Later.
Boom.